Welcome to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. For the next hour, you'll hear proven methods for how to live the multiple income streams dream. Ryan is passionate about helping others discover their gifts and start their own business. He's published 5 books, and his courses and group coaching programs have changed the lives of thousands of students all over the world. Ryan's books include Private Label, The Easy Way, Finding Your Grace Place, and his latest, Streams of Income. And now, here's your host, Ryan Rieger.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Streams of Income radio show. I'm your host, Ryan Rieger. Today we're chatting with my good friend, Eric Nevins. He's been on twice now. And so I love having returning guests and just catching up, seeing what's going on in their lives, and then chatting about new stuff. There's always so much to unpack. Today with Eric, we talked about how he uses his Facebook group as a lead magnet for his business, how Facebook actually promotes his group, how to get booked on podcasts. We talked about how an e-commerce seller could use a podcast if they wanted to do that. And then we talked about the differences of he has a paid group and a free group. What's the content that he puts in the paid group versus the free group? There's a lot of people that have both, and how do you use both? How do you leverage both? How do you decide what to put in one, what to put in the other? But great conversation. I always learn a lot when I'm talking to Eric. Here is my interview with Eric Nevins. Eric, welcome back to Streams of Income.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ryan. It's good to be here.
Of course, always. You're always welcome. And we don't really have a topic, do we?
No, not exactly, which is interesting. But you know what? I love the whole topic that you have here, and I know that as we dive in, we'll bring a lot of value to our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So remind people that haven't listened to the episode that we recorded. It's been a few months now. Tell them we'll just do a quick intro. We won't go into your stories very much. Yeah. I'll post a link in the show notes to that previous episode where we dive deeper into what you do. But let's do a quick intro.
Yeah. So my main thing is podcasting, specifically Christian podcasting. So I run and founded a group called Christian Podcasters Association. That is, we help independent Christian podcasters start and grow their podcasts. So we want to help you if you have a vision or a dream and you feel like God's nudging you to start something, become a content creator, which I think more people need to do. We can help you do that. If you want to grow it, you run into some common roadblocks. We have also run into those, and we can help you get over those and get to where you want to be. That's my main thing. And there's all kinds of tributaries, I'll say, to that and what that means.
Yeah, let's go into it, because that's how usually whenever I've taught streams of income, I either will use the example of like a tree, for example, like the trunk is your main message, like podcasting for you. And then one branch is your CPA, your gold and silver membership. And then other branch might be your podcast tours. Another branch that's just starting to bud is the Christian Podcasters Association network that me and Stephen are working on with you. But it all has as one central theme, podcasting. And I've always told people like streams of income should not be where, you know, you have another branch that you and your kids have a lemonade stand on the weekends. Like you could do that, but then it's almost like it's like a job, because it's not in the same vein. It's so much easier, in my opinion, to start a new branch if it's already somehow connected to your main thing.
Totally. Yeah. If you're in that I think stream is probably a good term, right? I think tributaries is a good one also. Like if it's the same kind of thing, they're all kind of running the same direction. Yeah. So much easier because you already have some knowledge, you already have some things that are going there. So
for sure. Yeah. Did your podcast tour service, how did that come about?
I love this story. Okay. So I started in 2017, Christian Podcasters Association, gathering Christian podcasters together in one Facebook group to help each other, right? Well, that built for me a really big network in Christian podcasters. And around about 2019, I was starting to get more speaking opportunities. People were inviting me to do some things and getting connected with more publishers in a different capacity. And a guy reached out to me from a pretty large publisher here in Colorado Springs and said, hey, look, you have a network. We're looking for somebody to help promote a book, but our budget is this much. Most people charge a lot more than what you had for a budget. He said, would you be willing to do it for this price? And I said, yeah, that's great, because for me that was just gravy, right? I was like, okay, sure, I could do that. And so I did. Didn't know what I was doing, and it took way too long, I think, probably. And I was a little took me a while.
Yeah.
It was also a genre that I wasn't like, didn't know a ton of people, so I was sending a lot of cold pitches, which those are less effective than people that you know, or who know you are going to bring them someone quality. And but it was great. So then that same company was going to hire me again in 2020 for a different one.
Okay.
And then the pandemic hit and kind of everything. They were like, oh, going down, kind of took that up. But then somebody else wanted to do it. And I actually had a guy, I don't think I've ever told you this story. There was a guy he wanted me to do a tour for him. And I tried to tell him no. I was like, no, I don't think so. I just, it doesn't work like that. And no. And he came back to me, he's like, no, I really want you to do it. And he wouldn't stop. And he's like, I want to pay you. So I let him, right? So I was like, okay, good. Because the podcast tours is an interesting, it's not the kind of, some of the detailed work is just not my expertise. I can do it, but I was doing it really honestly just because I had the network, and it was a good way to make some money. So I did it. So that was one. And then last year, a gentleman hired me, an author, to do the same thing. So every year for the last 3 or 4 years, I've had one tour, right, for a year.
Yeah.
But I'm not promoting it. I'm not trying to do it. And then this year, I got into, so a guy, there's an author, a pretty large author with a large audience, who has a bunch of books coming out this year. And he asked me if I would help him out. And I said, I can make introductions for you. And then he introduced me to his, to the publisher, and they were like, hey, and I mentioned my network, because by now CPA is 3,500 people. And I said, hey, I've got this group, and I know all these people, and I'd be happy to do it. She said, you know what? That's great. Send me your rates. And then they hired me, and that reminded me, hey, there's lots of opportunities here to get something. And then they've hired me a couple times now, and we're working on all of that. And I've hired some help as well to make that happen, which has been a whole new world as well. But it was something I went into reluctantly and kind of trying to not do.
Yeah.
And then it was like, wait, actually, this is something I probably should push it to and get somebody to help with some of the other parts that I'm not good at.
Yeah.
But I do have a lot of connections, and it's good to do.
That's good. With the podcast tours, I don't think we talked about that on the first episode. I don't remember that.
I don't think so.
You tell people what they are essentially and who you're looking for, because there might be people that are like, I'd love to promote my business on podcasts and get on as guests on other shows. And that's essentially, you do it for them. You connect them with podcasters. Exactly.
So that's part of the deal is, at the moment, I think there's a couple things that people think about podcasting. One of them is that everybody has a podcast, and it feels like that, but it's just not true. There's not as many as you think.
Yeah.
And the other is that podcasts seem like a good way to connect with people. And that is absolutely true. So getting on podcasts is a good way to promote your, whatever it is, your thing. So your business, your message, your own podcast, a book, because podcast audiences are very engaged. They want to hear about a certain thing. If you have a podcast, for instance, podcast listeners average about 7 shows that they are devoted to every week, right?
Wow.
So you want to become one of those shows if you have a podcast, and getting, somebody's already a podcast listener, you can get on there. So what I do is I help facilitate that and help you get on to other shows that will match kind of your niche. Doesn't have to be even perfect, I don't think. I think if you're a business person and you can get onto business shows, but if you want that target market to be kind of mostly or some overlap, but it doesn't even have to be perfect, because you'll find some people in almost every audience who will connect with you and go and check you out. So we facilitate all that. We do the scheduling, we get it on your calendar. We do all the pitches to the podcasters, and then we make that connection so that hopefully all you have to do is go, hey, look, there's this thing on my
calendar.
What's, who is this? What do I need to know? Hopefully we're giving you a little bit of that. And then you show up and do your thing.
Do your thing. That's awesome. What would you say, like, for somebody who has a business, they're trying to promote it, would it be better to be the guest on somebody's show, or just to sponsor that show?
I would say guest, be a guest. So you could do both. And in fact, I would say you would delight a podcaster. I'm like, I say a medium-sized podcaster. Somebody's getting, let's say, 500 to 1,000 downloads an episode.
Uh-huh.
If you went to a podcaster and said, hey, I will give you $100 an episode for a month, right? Like, you would delight them. They'd be so happy to have a sponsorship like that. So don't discount that. I think there's a really good reason for that, because those they live in the feed forever, right? And so you get all that long tail stuff. I think that's undervalued.
Yes.
But having said that, being on the show is better because people can get to know you, right? And so this whole business is know, like, and trust. People will do business with you when they know who you are, they like you, and they will trust you. Let me give you an example. Somebody who I feel that way about. Mike Michalowicz. Do you know Mike Michalowicz, Profit First? Have you ever read any of his stuff? Okay. I have listened to so many of his books and read. I mean, Profit First was one. I'm reading one right now on my walks in the audio version. I love his audio version because he always goes off script, and it makes me happy to, like, hear. I know I'm getting something special.
It's like extra content. It's like
totally, absolutely. It's so good. But I like him. I like his personality. But you know where I got to learn it? I heard him first on some of the podcasts that I used to listen to back when I worked at the bank, and I was sitting in my cube bored trying to educate myself on business. Yeah. He was one of the guys that I heard, and I liked him, and I have now I'm on his email list, and I'm probably a customer. And every time he sends out a thing like, hey, join my membership, I think about it really hard. Yeah. So that's the value. And that just hasn't, he made me a fan because I listened to him.
For sure. You mentioned something that's so powerful. Like, you and I, our mutual friend, Melissa Hughes, has 250,000 followers on TikTok. And I'm pretty sure, like, most of that lives forever. But if she does a story on Instagram, for example, that's gone, I think, in a day. And so, like, if I came to her and said, Melissa, I'd love to sponsor you, and I have these cool new mugs that I'm coming out with. I just got this at NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters Convention. Nice. I love this mug. But like, if this was my mug and I wanted her to promote this, and she does a story for me, and 250,000 people see it, they only have one day to see that, unless she makes it part of her regular feed. However, if I'm on her podcast, like you said, that lives forever. And don't you think that's a huge advantage to over regular social media?
Absolutely. And I've had people who want that bang for their buck, like at the beginning. Like, they want a show that's like got a lot of downloads at the beginning. And there's value to that. I'm not going to say there isn't. But I think being too focused on that misses the whole point. You don't know when a creator is going to blow up, right? Or is going to get an episode or two. If they're doing the work, that's the thing that I'm concerned about. Are they showing up, and is somebody going to go back in their feed and hear you because they're looking for more content on a vacation or a road trip or the airplane, whatever. Yeah, they might, and they will. And don't put all your stock in the upfront, like, first 30 days. That's where most of those downloads come from. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot that will come in that long tail. Absolutely. And I think it's undervalued. I think people don't get how important that is.
Yeah. Well, talk about too how a podcast, you own that. Like, there's, like, I could do something on Facebook, and they could, like, axe me and I'm gone. Whereas podcasting, like, it's rented. Facebook equals rented space.
Yep.
Versus a podcast is, I own this. That's my content. I can't, currently be censored, right?
Right.
I can say whatever I want on a podcast.
You can. You should be careful, I think. Don't be libelous or something, slanderous.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. You can say what you want to say, and you're purchasing the hosting. And so I guess a hosting company could go, hey, we don't like what you're saying. We're going to drop you. Yeah. Unless you're on a network, like a network will have some concerns perhaps. Sure. But for the most part, if you're independent, you can simply do what you would like to say. And it runs the whole gambit. There's everything that people talk about, anything you can think of.
Yeah. Could you ever imagine? I was talking to somebody about benefits of podcasting last week, and thinking, like, well, I wonder, like, if Apple could not show a certain show, if it couldn't, like I look and like, oh, that guy's not on there. I guess that's possible, correct? Where it could shut down a feed.
And I think they have. I think that can happen.
Okay.
But I don't think it usually happens.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's harder at this point to monitor audio content, right? Like even still,
that's true.
As AI gets better, maybe there'll be things like that.
True.
And my guess is someday there'll be a audio search where you'll search like Google's already starting to do this with YouTube, right? With videos where you can search and it will give you a video and give you the timestamp.
Yes.
Where if you click on it, it will give me the timestamp and give me that content immediately.
Yeah.
The part I needed to fix my dishwasher, whatever.
Yes.
Okay. Without all the dumb intros and all this stuff. Like I don't need all that. I just need the 6 minutes and 53 seconds to whatever.
This is where he tells me exactly what screwdriver to use.
Fine. So that doesn't exist for podcasting yet. I think it will someday, but right now it's not a thing.
That's good. So I have a lot of people in my audience. A decent portion of them, they're e-commerce sellers. So I know. Let's just brainstorm a bit. If I'm selling these mugs, this is my product. I own this product. This is my private label, or maybe I have some exclusive wholesale deals or whatever. Like, what do you think people like that should have a podcast? I mean, it's available, it's out there, I own the content. Who knows what else who would find me through that. Let's brainstorm an e-commerce podcast. Like, what does that look like if I'm just, my whole goal is to sell these mugs. I love mugs and I want to sell them, or whatever the widget is.
Wow.
Can you imagine, like, what would you do a lot of coaching calls with people. I don't know if you ever had an e-commerce person, but what would you tell them? Would you tell them to even start a podcast?
Well, what I would tell them is you need to be making content in some way. Mm-hmm. So, and podcasting is my favorite because I'm an audio guy and I like, audio. Okay. How do you do that? But this is a really interesting challenge. You're selling a physical product in audio, non-physical format, right? Right. Like that's a little strange. I would, there's some challenges, right? Because you can't show it like a video where first thing I would say is be on social, right? Be on TikTok, sipping from the mug, right? That'd be the first thing I would say.
Yeah.
But if you were going to do a podcast, what could you do? You could do something like around it. So you might say, my guess is you're probably not creating the mug yourself, right? You're probably not like molding clay and firing clay, painting, right? You're not doing all that, right? But there's a process to all that stuff.
Yeah.
And all that stuff actually, it creates the quality. So I would start talking to somebody like that, perhaps, that is looking for people, or more likely you're making mugs for, let's say businesses or something, right? You're doing something where you're, I don't see. This is a good question.
I have an idea. One question I would ask is, or I learned this from one of my mentors, Jim Cockrum. He says, if people are interested in product A, what else might they be interested in? And so his journey was, he was selling on eBay. And so he was wondering how in the world, this was many years ago, how in the world could he turn those eBay customers into other things? How could he make another stream of income from his eBay customers? So he asked himself the question. He was selling tickets to sporting events and other events. He had a method of how he was getting these seats and able to flip them for a profit on eBay. So he decided that he would create a report, and this is early 2000s, create a report, sell it on eBay on how he got those good deals. He made way more money on selling this information of how to find good seats. Now, his fellow ticket scalpers were not happy with him because he was sharing the secrets, but he turned it into information. So I think for a mug, potentially, I think if I buy this mug, what else might I be interested in? Well, maybe coffee. So maybe you have a podcast and it's a coffee podcast, and the mug is you're not getting on every episode talking about the mug because that's kind of boring. But you're talking about different coffees around the world, and you're interviewing coffee farmers, and then the mug just happens to be the sponsor of the show. That would be an idea. I don't know if it would fly, but
what I think you're hitting on here is where I was trying to go. There's probably something around your product.
Yes.
Like even if your product is not the thing you can talk about for hours and hours and hours on end, there's something around your product that you can do.
Yeah.
And that you can create that will draw in people who want your product.
Mhm.
And that's the key. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I think so too. And I don't know if anybody, I'm not sure that every single person that's in physical products should have a podcast, but you said they should be creating content. So that's really good.
Mm-hmm. 100%. Yeah. You absolutely should be creating content if you're selling anything at the moment, for sure.
That's good. You said something earlier too, but you were talking about your Facebook group. I always tell people that they need a lead magnet, and Facebook has become a lead magnet for you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you dive into how that happened and what kind of leads you get from that and how you're able to actually get emails from your Facebook group?
Yeah, I do actually. So, I did not for the first 2 years of the group collect emails at all. I don't know why that didn't occur to me to ask in the questions. But it did eventually. I think I heard somebody say that you should be doing that, and the light bulb went on. Oh yeah. So when people are searching, they're looking for some sort of group for Christian podcasters, and they search Christian podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to find Christian Podcasters Association, and they can join it, and it's free. So essentially, that is a lead magnet, right? Something free that they get in exchange for something else of value, which in our case is an email list. So in my questions, I ask 3 questions. I ask, "Are you a Christian?" And I ask that because it's a filtering question.
Sure.
Anybody who says no, I don't approve. Anybody who doesn't answer it, I don't approve. That, and I think it indicates to people, hey, this is for Christians, and if I'm not, I probably don't want to be here. And the second one I ask is, tell me about your podcast. Again, this is a filtering question because what I don't want are people who are believers who just want to find podcasts. I get a lot of that sometimes. So I'm trying to filter out those people.
Do you let somebody who was about to start one or wanting to start one into that group?
And then they tell me that. So I have the question
Perfect.
is something like, tell me about your podcast. And then parentheses, I say, it's okay if you haven't started yet. Just tell me what you would like to do.
Perfect.
So there's an indication that if you're interested or you're wanting to go that direction.
It's only for content creators.
Right. Yeah. Then this is for you. And people tell me they leave a link or they do all kinds of things there. But that gives me an indication of what they're interested in. Mm-hmm. They also will sometimes say things like, hey, I'm an editor and I would like to get in here and meet more podcasters. And I've been back and forth on that. Sometimes depends on what their business is. And it's real clear as long as they're going to obey the rules. That's okay for them to be there. I do give opportunities for people to promote their businesses because, hey, that helps all of us, right?
Sure.
And then the last one is your email address. Give me your email address. And I promise no spam there.
Right.
And people give me their email address. And so then that goes in. I actually have a VA who will grab all that information, put it into my content or client management system. Mm-hmm. And then that triggers the tag triggers an automatic email sequence to them.
Nice.
And that gives them, some emails. And so one of them is an introduction to me and say, hey, this is, I'm really glad you're in the group. Let me tell you a little bit about how this group started.
Yeah.
And I give some of my story. And people respond to that, which is awesome. Kind of cool. So then I end up having these exchanges back and forth with them about their show, or I'll try to ask some questions. And I never end an email without a question of some sort about them. So, what are you? Hey, that's really great. Thanks for sharing your story, or whatever they do. Sometimes they're really long emails, which I'm really surprised people have taken that much time to send to me all of this. And I'll read through it, and then I'll respond and ask a question about, okay, where are you trying to go, or what do you want? What do you need right now? Things like that.
Yeah.
To try to get some information about. Partly, I'm looking for, is there something I can do right now for them? Do I have a free resource I can help with, or do they want coaching? Is there something I could offer to get on a call with them and start doing some of that?
That's awesome. Is that how the primary way you've grown your membership?
It is, yeah. So the group is how I do that, and then then they're on the email list, right? So then I a couple times a year do a campaign of some kind.
Yeah. All right. Question. So this is where I hear a lot of people say, because I've heard other people use a free group to get into a paid group. Well, if I've got a paid group, how do I decide what content to put where? Because I don't want to put the good stuff in the free group. I want to reserve that for the paid people. How do you handle that?
Well, it's I learned this a long time ago. It is you talk in the free group about the what and the why. and then you share the how in the paid group.
Yes.
So I will talk about what podcasting can do for you. I will talk about why podcasting is a great option,
Yes.
for why podcasting is sharing the gospel around the world, which I think is really important and kind of a big deal for the 21st century. All that kind of stuff, why they should, think about their mindset more directly. I've got kind of this whole list of things. So talk about all those things. And then in the paid group, that's where we do, okay, this is how you change your mindset. This is how we dial in your message. This is how
That's so good.
These are some new tools that you could use or whatever.
Very good. Wow. That's awesome. You have 3,500 people in that free group, man.
Yeah.
And how many, did you just take a guess? How many new people asked to join every week?
I think it's about 20.
That's 20 amazing. And how many
20.
of them give you their email address?
Most of them. Yeah, most of them.
Oh my goodness.
So I will approve people if they answer the first two questions and not the email address. Sometimes people put in there, why? And I love this. I'm like, all right, you're going to be cantankerous, but that's okay. We'll let you. That's fun. Because eventually, here's the thing. I advertise in the group too, right? So it's fine to get, I still want access to them. I just want their email. But yeah, so it works. I mean, it definitely is a good way to build that list.
So you get 60 to 80 new emails a month from your that's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, something like that. So hopefully it builds, over time. I'm a little ambitious though. I've been starting to wonder how I can make that grow it to 10,000. Like how do we get the group even bigger? Because everything in business, right, is a percentage usually of something. So I'm like, probably my group has grown to the point where this is what it can be with this size of a group. And we need to, do
you have, so this, I was talking strategy stuff and Stephen would be good on this call. Just thinking out loud here, with that email sequence, when I join your group and I get that welcome email, is there a sequence that points me to the membership?
There is, but that needs to be updated. So there's a few things that I do. I point you to our socials. I point you to a few other different things, but I'm in the process of updating it so that the sequence is much more, because I've toyed with different things, right? This is how everything works, right? You iterate and you try things. At one time, the membership was closed, and I was only going to open it a couple times a year. And I just decided I don't like that model very well. I'd like people to be able to join at any time, which is a legitimate way to go about it. So that's what I do. So I actually need to update that so that there's a little more intentional push toward the membership within that initial email sequence.
That's perfect. One thing that we did with the Legends group is we'd have there was an urgency of it. It was get in now for these bonuses, and so and that was an automatic thing that went out, and we'd get some people that signed up during that sequence. Most of my new signups would come from a special promotion I'd do to the whole list, but definitely I'd put some type of urgency in those automatic emails that, like, every time somebody gets in, a week later is the end of some, that period of time that they have to get in at this rate or with this special bonus that's not offered anywhere else. Just so that, that does actually become a legitimate, it is a lead magnet for you, but it's a lead magnet that leads directly to your membership.
Right.
Versus just a new email.
Right.
That's good. And there's all kinds of different things you can try, though. It's endless.
Which is part of the fun, right? I think it's fun to try different things and see what works. I think it's interesting as well, the Christian category. I mean, podcasting is one of those things where people are already paying a little bit to kind of make it if they're doing it right. So I think sometimes they're a little bit hesitant. So you got to be really clear on the value that you're bringing. And I've learned that, over the last few years. Like, okay, that's something I got to do.
Yeah. And I don't know if you said this, but Facebook will suggest your group for you. Like you were mentioning, when I go into search and type in Christian podcast, like yours is probably going to be one of the first ones that comes up there because you've been around so long. And so then also, because your group is so engaging, I imagine there's people that are seeing it on the right-hand side that Facebook knows that this person's interested in podcasting and that they're a believer. And so Facebook will actually essentially advertise your group for you, which is really cool.
It's awesome. right? It's like, hey, that's helpful. I could use that. I could use a little Facebook help.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Absolutely. Wow. That was so good. What and the why in the free group and share the how in the paid group. So good. I often tell people, if they're starting a business and they're wanting to get leads, obviously leverage Facebook for it, but you can go into groups and serve, or just start your own group like you did. And there's a lot of benefits of that. What's involved? Like if somebody's thinking, man, I'd love to do that, but it sounds like a whole lot of work. How much work do you put into that free group?
It initially was a lot more work than it is today. So there's a few things you have to do. Obviously, you have to approve members. You can set it so that it'll just automatically approve members. I am hesitant to do that, so I don't do that.
Yeah.
My VA does that today, but I did it for probably 4 or 5 years, probably. So long time. So you have to approve members, and then you got to capture all that data. And there's no real good way to do that right now. Where you software developers, please create something.
Yes, for sure. So right now it's manual, but at least you're not doing the VA's doing it for you.
That's correct. Yeah. So I've got a VA doing that. But I did it for a long time.
Yeah.
And then inside the group, you have to create some sort of community, some sort of thing. There's probably 2 ways that you have to do that and to add value. I have posts that go up on certain days of the week. And there's a few. I do a new episode Monday. So it's a post. I don't let people share their episodes everywhere, because a lot of these groups will turn into just people posting their stuff.
Right.
And nobody wants that. And that's not creating community. That's just promotion. And that's not the kind of group that I wanted.
Right.
So we give a space for that every Monday where you can post your show and comment. And so I always ask also, hey, comment on somebody's show or go listen to their show or try to engage. That's hopefully creating community. Yeah. I do a Thursday prayer post, which was suggested to me by my friend Phil, who was around at the beginning of the group, which is great. So as a Christian group, that kind of is a little bit of a distinctive, and sometimes a lot of people comment on that. Sometimes nobody does, but at least it's there, and it's a little bit of a reminder. Hey, there's more going on here than just podcasting. And then I'll do a couple other things. We do a celebration thread once a month where people can celebrate their wins, and that's always really fun to go through and see what wins people have had, my episode milestones, download milestones, great guests that they've got, and things like that. Awesome. And then we do a guest connection one once a month.
You ever go live in that group or have any videos in that group?
I also do that too. Yeah, so I do that as well. Okay. So I started a new podcast called The Christian Podcaster, and where my goal is to share the what and the why, right? So on that show to lead to the membership. Yep. And I go live in the group when I do that. In fact, I broadcast that all over the internet. Yep. But that's what I have done. And then I also host Hangouts, which have been remarkably well attended. I'm interested in that. Like, people want to hang out, get to know each other. And then sometimes people see that, they'll get to know me, and they'll join the membership as well.
Very cool. Do you go on live? Are you on all those? The hosting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I get on, and I didn't used to, but I have started because I think that's a valuable place for me to be, at least at the moment.
That's so good. Yeah. Well, how would you say for podcasters, like, because it feels like it's pretty much a one-way street. Like, if I listen to you, there's really not a way to engage with you unless I put a comment or send you an email but do you feel like having a community would be so valuable to podcasters? Like, create a Facebook group or a Mighty Networks group. Any other ways you've seen people do that other than a group kind of like that? Because then you get to know your audience, and like that host hangout, you're actually talking live with your people that are listening to you. That's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, in fact, I'm having a thought. I'll come back to the group question, because absolutely. I'm also thinking about doing something like a free coaching Friday or something, like where I used to listen to a podcast where you would do that. And I think that'd be really cool in the Facebook group as a way of helping promote. Anyway, so you inspired me. You reminded me. I got to do that. Okay. To answer the question about community, I absolutely think you should have one, whether it's a Mighty Networks or something. I have a friend named Chris who started a group for men, and he did this really in an interesting way. He started I can't remember if he's on Circle or Mighty Networks, one of those, but he started the group for free for 90 days, and he promoted the heck out of it. Just kept promoting, inviting people in. He got quite a few people in there, several hundred. I want to say it was over 500 people maybe. And then he said, all right, hey, on this day, we're going to go to paid. If you want to stay, you have to sign up. And a bunch of people didn't, but a bunch of people did. Right. And I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of go into that.
Wow.
As well, to give people a whole big experience. This is what we're going to do. And then he does that repeatedly. So that was his way of starting basically a membership.
That's so cool.
I thought that was interesting.
A way to monetize a podcast.
Right. But I also think community is super important. And if you've done your message well, there are people who need to hear your message, and you need some way to bring them together so that you can share with them what you're creating and what you're doing, and so they can help each other. And the goal, I'm really committed to this idea of not having undue influence over other people. So there's a book called Celebrities for Jesus by Caitlin Beatty, which is great. I think it's a good read. She defines celebrity as influence without proximity, which I think is really interesting, right? So if you're we can name any celebrity, right? Who people are watching their moves or whatever, watching what they're wearing, or and that has a tremendous amount of influence. I don't ever want to be that guy. That's not what I'm interested in doing, right? But I do want to influence people, right? I do want to change what people think about, and I do want to encourage them to think in what I would call a kingdom of God way, right?
Yeah.
So, but that takes proximity, and it takes it probably not being about me. It takes a community to look at each other and help each other in ways. There's things that happen, connections that happen in Christian Podcasters Association that I never see. Yeah. And I'm glad for that, because that means that the group is doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
I don't have to be the center of attention. It's about the community. And I think you can do that with your podcast as well. Maybe there's a little bit of an altruistic streak through that, but it is a thing that can really help build your overall business.
Okay, so I understand that from the business side, it totally makes total sense to have a podcast talking about business stuff, drive them to a community where I can get to know them and sell them coaching or a membership or whatever. But what if my podcast is more just I'm preaching? It's a devotional. Do you feel like that person, like our friend John Stange, like he's got like 5 podcasts now? It's crazy. But like, let's take his daily devotional. If that was his only podcast, would you tell him, John, let's create a community out of these people? Do you feel like that would, of course, there's always going to be value in connecting people.
Sure. Yeah.
But is there a way in your mind that actually, could he do the monetary, like your friend that turned it into a community and did a lot of stuff for 3 months and then turned it into a pay? Do you think somebody like John could do that with that devotional podcast?
I do. Yeah, I think so. In fact, so I know another guy named Keith Farron he has a Bible study membership. And this is the thing that he does. So, and he has a kind of a YouTube podcast channel, and he will interview people, and he'll do products. He puts out new Bible studies every month.
Okay.
And so, absolutely, people are looking for that, right?
So what's he doing in the community that's a little bit extra? Why would I give him the $10 or whatever it is per month to be a part of that?
I think he's got things like he does lives, and he does special, like everything that he's writing goes in there that people can do. He's got courses and things like that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
I always tell people, like, if you're a podcaster, one easy way to repurpose content and do a membership is literally just to, like us right now. If we could be broadcasting into a Facebook group, and then at the end we hit end the recording and say, okay, everybody, now you can hang out with me and Eric and ask Eric questions.
Right.
And that could be an extra thing. Like these people that only get they're getting early access to the recording, because this is actually not going to be live on my actual podcast for a few weeks. So they're getting behind the scenes information. Plus they get to interact with you and ask you questions. That's an easy way to make it exclusive.
Right. Exactly. Give them a little something extra. And yeah, it's not really that difficult. It just takes a little bit of setup initially.
And plus there might even be people that, you know what, I just appreciate John and what he's doing. I just want to support him. I don't even care to be in the group. Right. I'll gladly give him $20 a month, because that's been so valuable. Like all those devotionals have been so helpful to my life that it's worth the 20 or whatever he would charge.
Totally.
Yeah, that's good. Cool. What else? Anything else you want to chat about?
Oh man. Well, I think there's all kinds of things. I love the talk about memberships for sure. I love Facebook groups. I think community is the key. And I think the internet's moving that direction, which is kind of interesting. I think people are starting to see that social media should be social and not just yelling at each other.
Yeah.
So I would say absolutely start some sort of community, bring people together. The world needs more of it.
Absolutely. Eric, well, you're always welcome back on anytime. You just say, hey, I got something to share, and
okay,
we'll have you on, man.
I will, man. That'll be good. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. From right here in the Dallas Metroplex, Ryan teaches several entrepreneurial courses and group coaching programs to students all over the world. Be sure to listen next week at the same time for Streams of Income with Ryan Rieger.